And sorry I'm late, guys. I am losing my mind lately because next week is in situ at the Small Arms Inspection Building in Mississauga that Kim is going to have an installation at, that we have both done some outreach teaching for working with students, high school students, and in Kim's case, Humber College students as well, helping them create projects for it. I'm also doing all the design work, and that's what I'm doing madly so that we can get signs and stuff printed. So up until just a very few minutes ago, I was madly doing that, and then switching mental hats to get ready for a collage jam. So welcome aboard, everyone. I will put a little welcome in the chat. Apparently I can't even spell. Anyway, so today we have March Hare, which is when I came up with that idea, I thought I would do a little research into Alice in Wonderland, which is something I probably read when I was very young, but can't remember anymore. And then I realized I wasn't going to have time. So, hey, Nellie. So I am just going to do something hairish. Hey, Cherie. Haven't been here in a while. Awesome. You already, of course you do, Cherie. You already have ideas. That's awesome. Hello, Brian. Welcome back. And Lisa and Jane. Yay. The gang is here. That's awesome. So I'm just going to do something rabbit or hare oriented. And the mad as a March hare comes from the fact that it's an English phrase. That comes from the fact that starting, at least in the UK, starting in February and probably getting really going in March, is the hare breeding season, and they are known to like bat at each other as the females fend off the overzealous attempts of the males. So they look like they're boxing. Yeah. Hey, Kathleen, how are you? Glad to have you along. I'll be happy to hear what your ideas are for, if you have ideas. Cherie already has a couple. Unlike me, I don't have any ideas, but I'm sure they will come once I start getting hands-on. As you guys know, I've already done one hare for the for the visual for the live stream. So using some colored paper to make like hares are just so crazy with those insanely long ears, and then the really narrow face and the big like eyes that look like they're going to come out of their skulls any second. They are outlandish and like wonderful. So let us know in the comments what you are planning, and thank you for joining me for this. I'm just looking outside and it looks beautiful. And you're in with joining me, so that's awesome. I appreciate that. So I'll switch to the overhead camera. Things will go black for a minute while I do that, and then we'll get this collage party started. So do not adjust your set. It's just the camera moving its way over to its overhead position, and we will be back on in a sec. There we go. Get it looking a little more professional. Get the wire out of the way. Professional in air quotes when it's when it's me. It's pretty loosey goosey. A little more light on for working with. And so, how have you guys been? Have you been collaging up a storm in between? I have a few collages on the go right now. that have had to take back burner because of in situ, but because I want next month I'll be at the Artist Project, the art fair here in Toronto. So with more fashion-oriented collages for and enlarged as prints. So got a couple more to finish for that. I sent a whole bunch already for being photographed, and so I just need to finish up a couple more and then decide on which ones I'm going to make large-scale prints of. So, but as far as our hairs go, I printed off a few images, a couple of photographs, and a couple of sort of retro things. Like this is nice because it's a photo that includes the page. And I think they're just they're maybe like botanical. This guy looks almost more like some other species, like a dog with long ears or something, or looks more ferocious. And this one, Lepus cornutus, like with horns. I've never. I wonder if that was fanciful or whether that was actually a species. I've never encountered it before, but and then I think this is a vintage illustration from Lewis Carroll time, so or maybe before. So let's just see what gets happening. Kind of like this one that's in midair, so I might play with that and maybe add some. I wonder what madness looks like. What I could do to add a sort of mad quality. Oh, and so Cherie says she loves the hair on the invite. Thank you, Cherie. That's nice of you to say. And Jane says, can't get any harebrained ideas, so working on a little something in colors I don't usually use. Brownish. Oh yeah, that's great. Yeah, you are normally a very zingy colored kind of person, aren't you, Jane? So that'll be interesting working with the sort of autumnal sort of palette. Cherie says she was going to ask if you're at the Artist Project. Yes, I am. So yeah, I will be happy to see you there, Cherie. That's awesome. And Joy has joined us. Hello, Joy. From West Coast. She says, hi, Cal. I have a big fat rabbit in my garden nibbling on my tulips. Yes, they will do that, won't they? And hello, Philippa. That's so lovely. Sorry, I'm having trouble with my lateral wave. There we go. Nice to have you along. Brian says he's going with images from the Velveteen Rabbit story from Parade of Stories by Child Horizons. Wow. Velveteen Rabbit is one of the stories dearest to my heart from childhood. And in fact, I don't think I really had it in childhood, but I came across it sort of as a teenager but still loved it. It was so moving. So yeah, that's a great choice. I think there's just got to be something with the ears happening, right? Because they're just so crazy. So I think maybe I'll do something sort of extending or emanating from maybe the sound waves coming, or the the sort of hearing stretching out, or something like that. And maybe put even 10 times taller ears on this guy. So I think something like that. Subject to change without notice, or yeah, and we'll see how it goes. And as always, the prompt is optional. So if you have another project you'd rather work on, it's totally cool. It's there in case it helps you get going, right? And sometimes just getting going is what we need. And then once we're going, everything works out. So just use it or ignore it as suits you. I don't normally cut things out so roughly as I'm cutting out some of this foliage, but I sort of got down to here cutting the rabbit out and thought, oh, it would be good to sort of include some of that. So, and I'm just not feeling it as far as cutting around every tiny little thing, which I can do, but every once in a while it's nice not to. So I'm going to keep my crops with this guy. It's sort of simpler, I think. So I'm curious, has anyone entered the Jumble call from Tiny Art Gallery that I will be fortunate enough to be jurying? I hope at least a few of you guys are, because I think it'll be a lot of fun. And well, I think of it. Kim sends her regrets. She's she has also been going gangbusters, especially for she's been tired for a long time, and we've been installing her room at In Situ. She's been doing more teaching in person with these she was at both a high school and at Humber College. So yeah, she's knackered. So she's still in her jammies, as she should be, taking a well-earned rest day. So she said, please send my regrets to everybody. And I said, don't worry, you're doing what you need to be doing. So let me know in the comments. Obviously, those of you who are further afield won't be coming, but if you're in the GTA or in the western part of the Toronto area, are you going to be coming to In Situ? I highly, highly, highly recommend it. It is next week, Thursday. It's scary saying that because I know how much still has to be done. Next week, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday evenings. And it's an evening event. It's in a partially renovated, partially still old, unrenovated Second World War munitions inspection building at Lakeshore and Dixie. And it's just so much fun, and it's super multidisciplinary. There are just about every kind of art imaginable, because there will be visual art, there will be dance, there will be spoken word, there's music, installation. I'm just trying to think what else. It's very diverse, and it's sort of, there are some interesting collaborations, and just and it's I think the admission is $10, and it's so much fun. It's like a really, really exciting event because things are happening in different places. There will be people wandering around performing, like clowns, and people in certain characters. There will be dance performances, spoken word. As I've already rhymed off a bunch of these things, but the way what's so exciting is the way they interact. You sort of some of the I don't know whether their performances are going to sort of be throughout the building, or not. But last time they had like performances that you sort of had to like follow along as the story sort of moved from one room to another, and I don't know whether they'll be doing that this year or not. But it's all based around a theme of the Lost Museum, which is the museum where things that get lost, forgotten, abandoned, or discarded show up in this imaginary space called the Lost Museum. So everything is sort of themed along that, or almost everything, not everything, but like lost socks, lost time, lost languages, lost anything that has been lost or abandoned. That could, and some of them are really fun and clever and conceptual, and so there's a lot. Kim is the lost librarian, so there's a library of lost books, and including some altered books that students have made that are just fantastic, like really amazing. So highly recommend. Cherie, so I'm just catching up on the comments. Cherie says, I'm playing with Hare and Despair. And Brian says, this will be for you, Cal. Oh, thank you, Brian. Good energy to Kim. Thank you. Lisa Kemp says, what call is that? I think I missed hearing about it. I'll tell you about it in a second, Lisa. Jane says, that show you mentioned, is it the mini one? Yes, it is the mini one. Thought you were going to send us details, and did I miss it? All right, I will tell you more about that in a moment. Lisa says, I live near the venue and have been to the show before. I recommend it. It's very good. Thank you, Lisa. Yes, it really is. Hi, Irina. Awesome. I don't think I changed the time, Irina. It's still 3 that we start. But no, sorry. But we are. It's good. I'm glad you're here. And I know it's a different time for you, but it's 3 p.m. here in Toronto. So I need to make a note to. I'll put it in the comments for this. I put it in the call for the show, the miniature show, in the comments, I think 2 streams ago, but I will put them in the comments of this stream. I forgot to put them in last time, even though I said I was going to, because my brain is overloaded. But I'll make a note. But it's yeah, so it's I think it's in Michigan. I forget where Holly is exactly. My friend, an artist I exchanged artworks with, we follow each other on Instagram, and she wanted one of my signs and I wanted one of her paintings, so we swapped. And then so we comment back and forth on each other's work, and she knew that I was into collage, so she asked. She started, like, those lending libraries that people have at the end of their driveway sometimes, or by their sidewalk. She's done a gallery version, and I think it's got a few different rooms. It's got little figurines in it, and artworks. And the artworks are, I think, 6 inches by 6 inches is the maximum size that the gallery can accept. And she asked me if I would juror a show, a collage show, and I said I'd be happy to. And so I will put the collage. The show is called Jumble, and I will put the details in this stream. It's in the comments in this stream after the stream is done. So yeah, sorry that I have been negligent on that. And there was something else I needed to talk about. Oh yes, Irina. Yes, we changed our time So we're 1 hour ahead now. Yes, that's what messed you up. Right. It usually starts when it's 9 p.m. there, and now it's just past 8. Ah, okay, yes. I'm glad, Irina. That's awesome. Um, yeah, so Germany doesn't do daylight savings time. I know some countries don't, eh? But oh, end of the March, right? Yeah. Oh, good. So we can't even agree internationally on doing it at the same time. Well, knowing humans, that's not surprising, I guess. All right. I think I'm going to crack out some bright colors for our hair here. These are kind of fun, these jelly plate prints. And so let's see what we can get cooking here. It's funny, I'm thinking about my instincts of what I'm reaching for, and a bunch of the things I'm reaching for are similar to the hair that I did for the for the stream visual, and so I'm having to remind myself, no, you have to try something different. So it's pretty funny when we have our sort of stock things we go to. And definitely when I'm doing, unless I've sort of come up with a plan, which I really should do more often, especially when I'm like walking and chewing gum like this, talking and working, having a plan is useful for me. So that's part of the reason why I am going to my straightforward, my defaulting to my instincts. Oh, I'm working with some Japanese paper, which is pretty great, but it's wrapping the glue in an interesting way. All right, well, fingers crossed. Right, this is pretty thin paper, so I can even feel the glue through it. And then in other places, it's absorbed the glue and hasn't actually stuck down very much. That's very interesting, sort of two ends of the spectrum in terms of response. In Toronto, we're really, well, in the West End, we're quite blessed to have a place called the Japanese Paper Place, and they have the most exquisite papers ever. And we're friendly. Kim is with the owners. Kim has taught a few workshops there, and so the last one that we were at, I think there were a few leftover packages of papers for students because a couple of people didn't show up or something like that. And the owner said, "Would you like these, Cal?" And I said, "Twist my rubber arm." And she said, "You can have them as long as you use them. Don't hoard them away." And so I've been faithfully trying to make sure I use them in collages, and they're just beautiful. So, so my first thought for this rabbit was to put him on a black background. I thought, yeah, I always do black backgrounds. So I'm trying to go opposite. Go with a light background, go with something work against my instincts a little bit. And I don't even know. Let's just see what's going to happen here. Okay, just had a thought. All right. Just thinking about maybe riffing on the playing off the ears with some torn pieces of paper. I want more above this rabbit. I needed a bigger piece of paper, obviously. Hare. It's a hare, not a rabbit, Cal. More interesting if I as always happens, I start with an idea and then I start noticing other things that might be more fun or interesting, and have to adjust as I go. Irina says, "I've really gotten into day collage. It's fun and relaxing, but I stumbled over problems with the glue. Right. How do you prevent the images, or especially the text, doesn't paste onto the next layer?" She uses Yoo-hoo. Is it making the magazine clippings too wet and thus the pasting happens? So when I do decollage, for what it's worth, I will not put a whole bunch of glue on. I'll do like half. And sometimes that means things will fall off and I have to glue them back on. But it also depends on how soon you peel things up. Like I normally leave it for a while. I think we talked about this last time, Irina. I will make my layers and then set it aside and come back to it later when the glue is dry. And certain papers take the glue differently, right? So a magazine, sometimes it sort of sits on the surface depending on the magazine. Like a super glossy, sometimes you put glue on it and it just peels right up again when it's dry, like it comes off easily. And if the paper is more absorbent, then it sticks really well. So it can depend a lot on the two sheets of paper that you're gluing together and what they're like. Like this sort of, it's not construction paper, but it's kind of like that. This sort of colored paper will really take the glue really well. It's uncoated. Whereas magazine paper, I still glue it down just fine, but it does, sometimes they glue really well together and almost too well, but sometimes they peel depending on the magazine and the coating. I'm just trying to see if I understand more problems with the glue. How do you prevent that images or especially text doesn't paste? Oh, I see, like doesn't transfer. I kind of think of the transferring of images as beneficial. Like if, this is a little aside, I'll just get a couple of examples. So if I have a page with text, since you're mentioning text, and then I glue something down over top of it, and when I peel it off, some of this shows on that. I actually think that's beneficial sometimes. It will distress this, and it will make, like I might end up using that page and gluing it back on somewhere. But if you were really hoping to see that text, then it can be annoying, right? So, and all of these are sort of things that you can only control somewhat. And for me, that's the that's a benefit rather than a frustration, because I like the way it gives me surprises. But but if you're not, but if it's kind of, obviously surprises can be useful or not, right? Depending on how you feel about them. So. All right. I could think about this all day, but I'm not going to. I'm going to try not to anyway. Let's put it that way. Try to just commit to a few things and trust that the process will work out. One thought I had was that I would leave the ears loose so that I could tuck things under them, but I put glue on it. But I'll just let that dry and not press it down yet, so that I can do that. I can always put more glue on to actually get it to stick. And then do this layer as well. This one could get glued down to here right away. I do love my zingy colors, and some of these papers I have if they're not quite fluorescent, but they behave. Well, actually, I think some might be. They're super zingy. So I was giving I did a workshop on collage and decollage for a group here in Ontario on Zoom last week, and I was explaining. I always explain how I use a glue sheet, and I thought I should just write the word glue sheet on it so people know what it is and what I'm using it for. And so I explained what that was, and sometimes it takes you a while to figure out it takes me a while to figure out obvious things sometimes. And now it's like, now I can find my glue sheet easily among my papers because it says glue sheet on it. It's like, why didn't I think of this like years ago? But now it's not just like a weird white sheet of paper. I can tell what it is. This paper has a very strong grain to it. I'm trying to tear a curve, and it really doesn't want to do much of a curve because it's got such a grain to it. I might have to do it with scissors with that orange one. Of course, now I've torn it up into pieces that are too small for what I was hoping to use it for. Hey, Rebecca. She says, I'm late, but I'm here. Awesome. Welcome back. How are you? Hope you're feeling a little better. I know you had that sinus infection. I hope it's leaving. And let us know in the comments whether if you have an idea for the March Hare or not. And yeah, or if you're going to work on something else, that's totally cool too. Yeah. I am just sort of noodling around with the idea of sound waves and the ears that are designed to hear them. So I'm just wondering about maybe having concentric circles are the way I need to go. I had been thinking sort of these torn shapes. Maybe they're just going to be the background. And, I used to have, of course, I don't know where it is now. I used to have a cutting attachment that would put a blade in my compass. So, but I don't know where that is. So I'm gonna maybe a 1/4 inch. So I guess that's 1/2 inch in diameter difference. I want them to be a 1/4 inch. I think that's good. And then maybe. Just trying to think how to go about it. I was just wondering if I stacked up a bunch of paper and then cut the circles out of several, then it would give me options. But if I want to layer them one on top of the other, which I might want to do, then I'd have to like cut the bottom circle, the biggest one, and then the next one a bit smaller, a bit smaller, a bit smaller. So that is the question. But I think I'm gonna try like the idea of like sound waves coming from different directions. In which case, skinny lines rather than full circles, I think. So in for a penny, in for a pound. I'm just going to give it a whirl, and we'll see how it goes. So I'm going to grab several different things and layer them up, and then cut circles. I'll draw circles on a sheet on top, and then cut them out all together, if I can do it. All right. And maybe, yeah, I was going to say maybe it should be like different kinds of things, which it is. But rather than all solids, I think I'll use stuff like these that have either patterns or textures or both. And maybe find a few more. That's a good one right there. And bright, maybe orange or something. It's a good one for orange because it's got a bit of extra color and texture to it. All right. Just going to see if there's a better yellow option. I've got some cool yellow things that are too small. That's pretty cool. And that's pretty cool. So I don't know. I might try it anyway. So we'll tape to hold it all together while I cut it. And it doesn't really matter because I'm going to do the same cuts through everything, what order they go in. So I'll just layer them up and then cut them. I might cut each circle in half as well so that I get sort of semicircles that I can radiate. It's funny how I definitely started with something different in mind, but you know, as the thoughts start happening, they take you where they want to. So. Cap this glue stick since I'm not going to be using it for a little while. And so let us know how it's going with you, how things are marching along. guess I shouldn't do endless layers one on top of the other, because then I will have too much difficulty cutting them, especially like this one's on a particularly thick paper. How many layers have I got here? 3 layers. Put maybe one more on top of that, and then maybe do a second stack so that there's no point stacking so many layers that cutting through them all is impossible. And some people are saying it's already too late, Cal. You've already done it. But I could take 1 or 2 layers off my first stack too. All right, where's that glue sheet? There it is. I can tell because it hasn't. Rebecca says, thanks. She's feeling a little better. That's good. Awesome. Don't have any ideas or plans. May just watch. That's totally cool. Irina says she's prepared a piece and now for the day collage. Awesome. So normally, so what I'm going to do is draw some concentric circles with my compass on this top sheet, and then I'll use those, I'll cut through everything. Normally, what I would do for something like that is, rather than using a compass, I would do the circles on my computer, and then print that out and then cut through that. But what the heck, I will go old school. It's actually kind of fun to do that. Most of my art and design schooling was, well, in fact, all of it was pre-computer. So it was actually the first year I was in the workplace that I started to learn to use the computer, which was awesome. Very, very useful. But what, Cal? I'm walking and chewing gum again. I don't think there is a but. It was great. It was great to, both things were good because I learned a bunch of manual skills. And then I learned how to translate some of them. And if you're working on deadlines and working on things where other people have input, where you do something and then the client says, yeah, that's great, or I like this part, but can you change that part, or this part doesn't work because that will, whatever. It's really great to have computer files that are easier to edit. So, and there are great aspects to the fact that you can do something, and if you're unsure, you can do a save as and try something and then try something else, without having to start from scratch the way you have to with so many things that one makes by hand. So, but hand skills are great, and humanity has used hand tools for eons and have used computers for just a very few decades. So I kind of feel like hands are also really valid things we do with our hands. This using a compass feels both. It has like an old familiar feel, and because I don't do it very much, it's like, oh yeah, I remember doing this, and I also feel like it's a little challenging because I haven't used it for so long. But it's like it's tapping, it's taking me back in time for sure. The twist and the coming back around the other way to make sure the line is dark enough, and the opening the compass to get the lead to a line. Other people would be like, "You're just using a compass. Like, how exciting can it be?" Or it's like, well, it brings back memories. No matter it, like creativity is creativity is linked inextricably, I think, to our technology, whatever technology we're using, right? Because you think of an idea and then you have to think, okay, well, how am I going to bring that into reality so that other people can see it and experience it and so on. So if you have a bunch of hand tools and hand tool skill, well, then that's your way to realize it. And if you have computer skills, that's your way to realize it there, right? Um, and so it's sort of this interesting interrelationship between, like, you can have any idea you want, but if you have no clue how to execute it, well, then it's academic. And there are also, each technology has opportunities and challenges inherent in it, right? So oftentimes I will be working on something and thinking about it, like, okay, well, it could be like this, and I figure out some of it, and then I start, and then I figure out other things as I use the tools to make it. And I remember when I was first learning the computer, noticing that I started thinking like in opportunities that the computer gave me after a while. And so it was both like, oh, that's interesting because I'm working within the parameters that the computer allowed, and maybe that's limiting my creativity. And then I thought, but it's also expanding it because I wouldn't have had these thoughts working with hand tools. So I don't even know where that's going, but it is an interesting, like there are no sort of, I don't think there are very few sort of set, like, if you do this, then that means this, and if you do that, it means that. they interact in interesting ways. All right, so I got all my circles drawn. I think some of my sound waves are going to go beyond. Not very many, not only in a couple places. So I think that'll be all right. Okay, let's see what you guys are saying. Comments wise, Brian is obviously cooking because he says just made 2 hair collages. That's awesome. You're cooking. You're on fire. And Lisa says, I found a photo of a rabbit which was in my garden, right, as they are wont to be. I'm doing a collage vignette of the rabbit holding up a tulip in its mouth. You and Joy both have a similar experience with rabbits in your backyard. I'm building the rabbit out of other photos. Of course you are, Lisa. So we'll see the products of your work in September. I look forward to it. Cherie says, I've done a 2-piece analog collage. Analog? Wow, Cherie. And then photographed it and digitally enhanced it. Not sure if it's a baby rabbit or a baby hare. I'm taking creative license and declaring it a hare. Absolutely. For today's purposes, we'll call it a hare. But I'm not going to split hairs. Boom, boom. Sorry, Rebecca and everyone else. All right. Well, that was the easy part, drawing the circles. And now, because I don't have a knife attachment, and I'm realizing because my paper is secured out here, the only sensible way to do it is to start in the inside and then cut further and further out. I'm looking at that tiny one, thinking, do I even want to start there? I think I'll start on the second one out. And in fact, as long as I don't cut them all out first, like if I cut all the way around the outside, and then I'll have all these big circles shifting around. But if I don't cut all the way, I can have the economy of what I'm going to do next, which is cut. I'm going to cut like 90 degrees worth of the circle. And then each time, because it just works with the way my hand works, so I'm going to do each one this way all the way out, and then I'll rotate my work 90 degrees and continue. I'm just realizing I'm going to have to take more than one cut at each layer because of each one, because I put so many layers in there. And are these going to be perfect circles? No, because I'm doing cutting freehand. So lots of people would say, well, that's kind of a downside of the way you're working, and it is in one sense. If what would I do if I wanted absolutely precise circles? I'm not sure. I guess I would go and buy seeing as I can't find mine, go and buy a compass attachment for cutting. Or you could take it out for like proper laser cutting or something like that. But for me, for now, I'll just be careful, as careful as I can reasonably be, and embrace the fact that it's not going to be perfect. I bought this super slimline Olfa knife that's got a metal housing, and I thought, ooh, that looks very sexy and cool. It's felter and everything, but I do find it. I don't know whether it's the metal or the fact. Yeah, I think it's the metal. It just doesn't feel as good in my hand as the plastic one, so I'm switching back to my preferred plastic one. Well, this is kind of tedious if you're just watching, isn't it? So if you are just watching, seen any good movies lately? Or any good TV series? This is one of those cases when it's oh right, this is going to take a while, or this and this. Oh, and it's really hard to cut through so many layers, and my hand is cramping up. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm happy to do it, and so on, because it'll hopefully the end will justify the means, and even if it doesn't. That's creativity. Sometimes it doesn't work out, and sometimes it does. But it is always funny how at first you come up with the idea, or you have a place to start, and then you get working on it. It's like, oh, okay, this is going to take a while. That's when the endurance aspect kicks in. Flip it over to make sure those look like they're all cut all the way through. Pretty much, I think so. Move on to the next quarter. Just realized I forgot to make sure I've cut all the way through, so I'm just going back to them. Maybe I did, because they all seem to be all right. And hopefully you can't hear it, but someone's car alarm is going off. Of course, classic. And it's ended mercifully. That's good. All right. So Brian says, I'm done. Used all 4 rabbits, hair images. They're flattening. We'll post soon. I'm gonna watch Cal now. It's gonna be like watching paint dry, Brian. It's your 4 will have been much more exciting. Jane says Oscars were on last night. Oppenheimer won Best Movie and it was good. Yeah, I've heard good things about that film actually. So yeah, cool. Rebecca says also take a minute to like the video to help Cal get the algorithm's attention. Thank you, Rebecca, as always, looking after us. Brian says no, but I recommend the documentary made about 10 years ago on Iris Apfel. Yeah, she's amazing, and her husband called Iris. She just passed. Oh, I didn't know that she had just passed. It was very artsy. Yeah, she's amazing. In fact, I think just recently they put out a bunch of clothing based on her by H&M, or at H&M did. Sorry, but yeah, she was an icon for sure. I have the feeling that the further I go around the circle, I'm halfway now, the circles, the less as they become looser, it's going to be harder and harder for me to. They'll get less and less precise, is what I'm thinking. But that's all right. Oh, sorry about sorry about that noise. Nasty. Hopefully it wasn't too bad. That glass clinking. And I think maybe I'll also cut these in half, which I will have to do shortly, so that I have sort of semicircles. to play with. Well, I guess if I had like onion rings, I could decide, well, I'll think about that. Because I could cut them in semicircles, but if I wanted to have the ability to make them different amounts of the arc, like not always, I mean, I could always cut them down even if they were 90 or 180, sorry. So maybe that's what I'll do. Cut them in half and then decide whether I want to cut them further as I compose with them. It's thinking about collage or art, really. I think it goes for everything. It's this dance of like, what decisions do I need to make and what decisions can I postpone, right? I always try to, in my head, or put it down on paper if it's if it's too confusing, figure out what decisions I need to make that will make life easier later. I try and anticipate them. I don't always anticipate them because you can't. But I try to like, okay, well, this is gonna, if I do it this way, it's gonna keep my options open. And then I also like, oh, there will be things that like I don't know what I'm gonna do yet, and I can't think about that until I get to that stage. Well, that's a decision. Those are decisions for when I get further along, and that's also good because then you don't end up with gridlock in your brain trying to make all the decisions at the beginning, right? Because you can't. Like something that I'm thinking about now as I'm cutting these concentric circles is, oh, I wonder if once I've done that, whether I'm going to feel like these two pieces were like, am I just going to want to play with the hair and the concentric circles and wish I had not put these on? Possibly, in which case I may, like, the worst, I'm not actually not that invested in this. So I'll play on this first with some of my concentric circles, and then, and if these are bugging me, I just print out my rabbit again, my hair again, and cut them out and move on with the idea that sort of came as my thinking and working evolved where I was going. I think there is going to be something interesting about sort of how natural the hair is and how sort of technical, human-made these concentric circles are. So I don't know what that's going to look like exactly, but I think there is something interesting there. So. Or parts of the concentric circles more accurately, since I'm going to cut them apart. You know, I don't do any painting in oil, but I was just remembering being in an artist residency where one of the artists who was facilitating at Monica Tap, the artists who were facilitating also worked with us, and she was an oil painter. And so, you know, where if you're a collage artist, you might be like, okay, well, on the first day, I'm going to like set up things and find, you know, lay out my materials that I might want to work with, or organize them, or do some printing out if you, or whatever, right? And because when I do paint, I work with acrylic, they dry quickly. And so I was really surprised, like for her next few days of painting, what she was doing is laying out her palette and like putting out her colors on this big sheet of glass. And she said, yeah, I love, like, this is the part I really like to get set and get organized. I put all the paints out on my palette, and it's like, it's just so foreign to me that you could put your paints out and just have them there for several days because they're oil and not dry. So our materials do dictate the way we work with them, right? So I remember thinking that is just so foreign to my experience of, all right, well, I'm going to paint, so I make sure I have everything I need, and make sure I have water to spritz them to keep them wet, and something to cover them when I go for lunch, and a completely different sort of almost paranoia about like keeping them moist and using them quickly. And that's not something you have to worry about with collage, which is pretty awesome. All right, so I'm going to cut them in half. I've cut 3/4 of the circles, and so this quarter is what's holding them together. And before I go any further, I'm going to cut halfway through. And hopefully by pressing hard on my ruler, they won't shift too much as I cut through them. Hopefully. They will shift. You can see they're shifting a little bit, but I'm really, really pressing hard on my ruler to sort of pin them down, at least on the underside. Now I need to like serve them up. And now that I've cut them, well, now I have to like figure out a way to organize them. I mean, not that they really do need to be organized, quote unquote, but keep them in a place where I can keep them somewhat sane. There we go. But I'll take the white ones off because it'd be kind of fun for us, for you and for me, to see all the colored ones underneath. Harder than I thought to take the white ones off, because they're all in little pieces. Well, that is what you wanted, Cal. Yes, I know. But it's already really fun. Like, if you could freeze this many layers just the way they are, it'd be kind of fun, wouldn't it? You can't, because there's no way to glue them all down in these. It's kind of cool the way they sort of jostle a little bit. I shouldn't say there's no way, because if I decided that the look of something like this, of several layers of paper sitting loose, like, or maybe like jostled a little bit like that, is just like too cool, I could carefully line it up and take a photograph of it and then have that piece to collage with, right? So there are ways to get around these things. So not that I'm going to, because I want I'm envisioning a sort of careful concentric use of these, at least at the moment. That's what I'm envisioning. But it's good to think along those lines. Like there are always ways to get around things if there's something that intrigues you enough that, oh, I'd rather have it this way. And sometimes when we're working, we have our plan and we get sort of tunnel visioned on it. And I encourage you to always sort of stay open to other possibilities. Like, I'm not going to say that in this case, it is what I'm going to do, but every once, like, well, not every once in a while, frequently, I will be working on a step and I'll look at something and go, oh, that's really cool. I thought I was heading in that direction, but seeing this, I'm going to head in that direction, right? And be open to that, right? Don't be so tunnel visioned on what you're planning that you don't stay open to opportunities that might actually be more interesting, right? So, because that happens to me on the regular. I'll be cutting something out, I'll flip it over to glue it, and I'll look at what's on the backside and think, oh, that's much better. Okay, that's a completely different idea, but that's better. I'm going with that. Or I will look over to the side of my desk and see something that like looks really beautiful and it just happened by accident. And I'll go, oh, okay, well, that has to become an idea now. Just staying open, right? I think artists are pretty good at that, but we do need to remind ourselves too. So now as I'm doing these last cuts, they will each, as I finish each semicircle, they'll come out. So unlike the previous one, so I'll put them over here. You know, I'm sure that there will be some jams at some point in time when I actually have an idea that I finish during. I'm looking at the fact that we have like 5 minutes left, and I'll run a little later than that, but there's no way I'm getting anywhere close to finished on this one. So, which is totally classic me. I finish some small percentage of the work that I start. I have piles off camera, fortunately, of sort of a collage that started like this, and then it's piled with the pieces that also go with it. I kind of feel like I need to like go on an artist residency that is a finishing residency and just go and spend a whole bunch of time finishing collages that I'd started. Sometimes when you look back at it, something you started a long time ago, it's like, or even it doesn't have to be a long time ago, it might even be just a little while ago, and you look at it and think, yeah, I'm not interested in that anymore, I've moved on. But sometimes I go back and it's like, oh man, this was such a great idea. I have to finish this. But we don't have to. I used to really beat myself up about not finishing stuff. And we're all different, right? I do have to sort of be vigilant to finish some things. But I also give myself permission and grace not to finish things. Everything that's started doesn't have to be finished. You can decide that it wasn't sufficiently interesting or successful, or you needed to change direction, or you were doing it for one reason. But some of us we're all different in terms of how consistent we are in our thinking, and I am a bit of a novelty freak, so I like new interesting things. So I will. It's not the best thing for sort of developing a reputation for doing X or Y, because I'm on to the next thing. But that's just how I am. That's how my creativity works. and I can't worry about it. This one I missed one of my concentric circles, so I think it's going to be hard to go back and cut this one, but I'll try. It's going to be difficult. I'll just try and pin it down as best I can. It's definitely a lot better to cut a quarter of a circle than to cut a half a circle. But more or less saved. You can see we didn't quite go through all the layers there. Madly trying to corral my silly half circles. Byproducts are also something that is very interesting, I think. For instance, I'm cutting out all these circles, but I'm looking at this. What's going to be left is this stack of pieces of paper with different edges and so on, and with this big center cut out of them. And I'm thinking, that might have some use too. Blue one's obviously the one in the bottom. Didn't get quite cut through there. Little knife slip, perfect. Oh wow. As I'm fond of telling my students in person or online, it's a handmade thing, so it shouldn't look like it was made by machine. And that goes for things like my concentric circles that are precise but not absolutely precise. So anyway, what I was talking about byproducts, isn't that kind of cool too? I do think that's kind of cool. Like, this is probably not the use for it, but like, what if I use it as like for that, or like these things that happen by accident. Like this piece has this really interesting edge. This one's a jelly plate print, so just a little bit of the orange showing through. So even that, I will probably find some use for. So I've got all my concentric circles now. There we go. So I'm just going to, before we wrap, I'm just going to do a first little test to see what this idea might or might not look like. Right, so if the sound waves are coming towards our rabbit, then I have to start big and go smaller, don't I? And because I have mixed them all up. So now what I would do is go back and like organize them by, these are the biggest ones, these are the second biggest ones, these are the third biggest ones. And I may need to do that because what I'm thinking is that these should be like this, right? Where there's a gap between them. So I'll have to pick every second one. And in this current state that they're in, I'm gonna have to organize them. This one's, yeah, it's the same size. This one. This one might be 2 smaller. It might be 3 smaller. So, well, for now, I'm just going to use it as a placeholder, but I would like it to be more precise than that. So, having mussed them all up, I'm going to have to then unmuss them and file them. It's my smallest one. It's like that. So despite the fact that I'm sort of missing one there, and so the gaps aren't quite right. That's sort of what I was thinking, and like having them maybe come from 2 or 3 different directions and overlap. I think there's something to that, because it's kind of like the posture of this guy is kind of like he's paused and really tuned into what he's hearing. And so I think that kind of gets at that. That's what those ears are for. That's what those ears are about. So like maybe, for instance, what I might do is, sorry, I mess it up. I might have some of the sound waves or the concentric circles go under his ears and then some go over. Yeah, so that's where this is going. So I'm going to switch and wrap up and read your last few comments. I'm sorry, I haven't read comments in a little while. So go on black for a minute and then back to our, there we go. All right, so Brian said, so back to Iris Apfel. He said, yep, she'd been peddling on HSN QVC for years. Brian Medlock says, talk about work ethic. She ruled. Yeah, absolutely. And Philippa has a circle input, which she says, when I want to circle or circles, I generally draw around a bottle cap. Absolutely. Yeah. In this case, I wanted precise increments, but you can absolutely use whatever's around. If I just need one circle, I'll often cast my eyes about on what's on my table. Cherie says, heads up to everyone to the open call for the Impact Show at Nielsen Park Creative Center. Kim was the juror last year. Also, an open call for the online collage show at the John B. Aird Gallery. Yes, so John B. Aird Gallery is downtown it's in McDonald Block, like the Ontario Civil Servants Building. And it's usually got a very good show. I don't know whether they have been doing some online shows, so I don't know whether that is an online show or an in-person or both. But they do a collage call at least once a year. So, and I've definitely submitted pieces in the past. Brian says, be right back. Gonna make a YouTube short with these collages. Cool. Jane says, checking out early, Cal, to go for a walk. Fractured foot is better. Good. Yay. I guess I'll check back later for deets on mini show. Not sure how to do that. So you probably left already, but they will be on the comments. You know what? Maybe I will send it out to our Collage Jam list. That's probably the easiest thing to do. Brian's back. Posted my funny little hair collages inspired by this as a YouTube short. Cool. Awesome. I'll have to check that out, Brian. And Lisa says, FYI, for anyone planning to go to the In Situ Festival, I just received a notice that Long Branch Go Station is closed that weekend. Oh, what a drag. So you have to use My Way TTC. And Brian says, love your hair collage, Cal. Thank you, Brian. That's nice. I think it's definitely work in progress at this point, but it's I think it's going somewhere. We'll just see whether it goes somewhere useful or not. And Cherie says, It's been out of Mullet Block for a few years and are currently at Queen. This is an online show. Okay, right. See, I should know that by now, but online show. Great, awesome. Because that means we can all take a look at it easily, which is cool. And Phyllis says bye. Thank you so much for coming along, Philippa. And I will put the comment in the comments of this underneath this video, the Jumble, and I will try and get it the details on the Jumble mini show. And I will also get it sent out via to our group, our virtual collage jam group, via email, so that everyone gets it. Okay. All right. And Rebecca says, thanks, Cal. Hi to Kim. And I will definitely pass it along. And thanks so much. And we are back. Let me just check before we go. We're back in 2 weeks on March 25th with the theme of flag. So get your flag thoughts going. Meanwhile, post any harebrained collages you have on our virtual collage jam Facebook group, and I will see you in a couple of weeks, or maybe before then at In Situ. All right, guys, thanks so much. Take care.